So I do want to share with you that we're going to talk about today significance and impact. But in advance, I'm pleased to introduce you to Dr. Alison Gammie. She comes to us from the National Institutes of Health, where she leads National Institute of General Medicine Sciences. She's also at Princeton University, where she serves as a senior lecturer and has a very prestigious background in not only teaching and mentoring, but also in microbiology. So without further ado, Dr. Gammie.
Great, thanks everyone. I think let me just get my slides going. Am I able to share my slides?
Yes.
Let's see. Oh, there we go, I got it. Okay, share screen. All right, and please interrupt me if the slides fail to advance. I've had issues in the past where I'm talking and the slides just stay stuck. So please feel free. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to hide this floating control so I can see a little better. All right, so it's a real pleasure to be here. I'm at the National Institutes of General Medical Sciences. I'm the Director of Training, Workforce Development, and Diversity. I just want to point out that my time at Princeton is in the past. I am now just strictly affiliated with NIH. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about today in terms of just advice for what I should bring to you is some of the funding philosophies of NIGMS. And this slide is a kind of schematic that really sums it up nicely, which is that in general at NIGMS, there's a push towards funding a diversity of institutions across the country, for example, and having smaller awards and spread off across more people and more institution types. We don't use strict pay lines. That means when you get the score in the study section, it doesn't always mean, even if it's a very, an excellent score, it doesn't mean that it will necessarily be funded. There's a lot of things that come into consideration. Likewise, even if the score is in the fundable range, we might reach for a grant application because it has other programmatic priorities. All right, so I'm going to narrow in specifically to the divisions of training, workforce development, and also research capacity building. And you can see that this is it's nearly 2,000 awards across 400 different institutions and nearly $1 billion per year. And it's you can see it's very nicely spread across the country, and it's not just concentrated in the regions that are typically seen, which is on the coasts and the southern part of the United States. So this graph shows you, or pictorial, just shows you the range of programs that we have in training, workforce development, and diversity and capacity building. And they really span the entire pathway, focusing from the pre-K to 12 level all the way up through faculty. Some of our programs span the pathway. Others are targeted at specific points of development. Others are targeted at critical transition points where we tend to lose people from the biomedical pathway. So I'm going to start out with programs that tend to span the entire pathway. We have an important program which is called the Diversity Supplement Program, and this is a really fantastic program because if you have an existing award at NIGMS, a research project grant, and there is a person that you want to bring into the lab, but you just don't have funds for them, and they are individuals who will contribute to the diversity of the biomedical research workforce, you can put in for a supplement, which is additional grant dollars to fund that individual. And we fund around $13 million per year in these supplements. We also have a research portfolio in the division, and this is on interventions to enhance persistence in the biomedical research workforce. And we have two different types of grants that are going on right now. One is through the National Research Mentoring Network, and it's about mentoring and navigating critical transition points. We also have a portfolio where we want to study interventions that will promote persistence in the biomedical research workforce. And these are really intended to provide the evidence base so that you can have effective, high impact, scalable interventions that will improve our understanding of things that contribute to success in advancing in the biomedical research workforce. And we just recently put out a notice of special interest where we'd like to have interventions that focus on structural racism and discrimination. We also have a research portfolio in combination with the National Science Foundation, and this is really about sort of modeling large structures within the biomedical enterprise that will really inform policy going forward. Again, we have a notice of special interest that specifically addresses structural racism and discrimination. We also have a training module. So this is modules that are put together by members of the community on different topic areas. We've had some in the area of rigor and reproducibility in the past. We have a current one out now for creating safe, inclusive, and supportive research environments. And it looks like the application was just passed, but soon look for one that is in a notice of special interest on structural racism and discrimination. We also have administrative supplements to our training grants. And so this is for individuals or institutions that already have one of our training grants. And you can see the broad topic areas there. And what we're trying to do is really foster development in some of the areas that we've been focusing on with our training grants. We also have the innovative programs to enhance research training. This is a research education award. I'm just showing you one example here, but we have a broad range of different types. And these are workshops or other kinds of activities that focus on skill development. They have a mentoring component as well as outreach. And the idea is to have a broad national reach, that it's innovative and it's sustainable beyond the grant period. Here's another example we have from the American Society of Cell Biology to improve diversity and career transitions through society support. Another example is mentoring programs for students at tribal colleges and universities. We also support the meetings, the SACNAS meeting, but also there are some enriching activities that go on throughout the year that we support, as well as pathways that can broaden access to career advancement, specifically for postdocs. In addition, we also fund national meetings, and probably the ones that you've heard of the most are the ABRCMS and SACNAS, and these are large meetings specifically designed to enhance the diversity of the scientific workforce. And for those of you who have not been to those meetings, I would certainly encourage you to go to at least one of them once. That's a really amazing experience. Also, we support different other meetings that have to do with a range of training topics, including a meeting for the scientists that work on those interventions that I was telling you about. That's an understanding interventions meeting. So in terms of capacity building programs, we have the Native American Research Centers for Health, or NARCH. And this is a program that supports opportunities to conduct research and career enrichment to meet the needs prioritized by American Indian and Alaska Native tribes or tribally based organizations. These go specifically to the tribally based, the tribal organization, and we have 16 awards currently and nearly $9 million per year. We also have the IDEA Network of Biomedical Research Excellence, and this is these are awards in what are known as IDEA states, and they are specifically targeted because they have lower research project grant, NIH research project grant than the rest of the country. And so this is the INBRE networks are, there's the core institution, the lead institution is research intensive, but then they partner with a range of institutions, including primarily undergraduate institutions, community colleges, and tribal colleges and universities. Now I'll focus on going through the pathway. Specifically, we have pre-K through 12 and undergraduate programs. I'm starting first with pre-K through 12 is the SEPA Science Education Partnership Awards. There's 126 awards now, around $35 million per year. Basically, these are partnerships between biomedical clinical researchers and pre-K through 12 teachers, schools, and other interested organizations. I just want to apologize. My neighbors are cutting down a tree, and I'm really sorry for the background noise. We also have a Bridges to Baccalaureate program, and as the name implies, this is to bridge the gap between 2-year college and 4-year college, and it's really to encourage the students to be exposed to biomedical research and then to help them major in STEM fields. We encourage strong partnerships between the 2-year and the 4-year colleges. And we want to see a well-integrated set of activities, both pre and post bridging, with things that emphasize a timely time to degree. We also have 2 companion programs, the Maximizing Access to Research Careers and the Undergraduate Research Training Initiative for Student Enhancement. So that's MARC and URISE. And these are parallel programs, but the difference is that they are at different institution types in terms of research project grants. So MARC would be at institutions that we would call research intensive, meaning that they have larger than $7.5 million research project grants. URISE, on the other hand, is for research active institutions that have less than $7.5 million on average research project grants. So the goal of this is to, again, enhance the diversity in the biomedical research workforce, but specifically to encourage individuals to get a baccalaureate degree and then to matriculate into and succeed in research-focused higher degree programs, including Ph.D. programs or MD Ph.D. programs. And the support is tuition and tuition remission, as well as a stipend, and that support can be anywhere from 1 to 3 years. We also have a bridging program called the Post-Baccalaureate Research Education Program, or PrEP, and these are found across the country. They're at research-intensive institutions, and the goal is really specifically to prepare students that have baccalaureate degrees to be able to successfully transition into PhD granting programs. Obviously the goal is to increase the diversity of the PhD applicants or pool. We did an assessment a few years back and found that 70 to 70% go on to earn a PhD. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about programs for master's students and pre-doctoral trainees. We have a Bridges to the Doctorate partnership. This is a parallel program to the Bridges to the Baccalaureate, except that it occurs at the master's to PhD transition. And the idea is that there's a master's degree granting institution that will partner with research intensive institutions. And the goal is to transition and complete the PhD. As with the other Bridges program, we want to see a strong partnership that offers a well-integrated set of activities, both pre and post bridging. We really want to see a reduction of the time to degree with effective skill building activities and agreements to really try to bring down that time to degree. And we also hope that it will enhance the research efforts of the faculty at the master's degree granting institution through interinstitutional efforts. We have kind of parallel programs to the MARC and URISE at the pre-doctoral level. So this is the initiative to maximize student development would be at the research intensive institution, and the graduate research initiative for student enhancement, or GRISE, would be at the research active institution. As with all of the programs, the goal is to emphasize the development of a diverse pool of scientists. Specifically, this program is for those who are earning a PhD so that they have the skills to transition to the next stage in the pathway. Support, again, is a stipend for the trainees as well as tuition remission, and it's typically for 2 to 3 years. We also have, and this is not an institutional award, these are individual awards that students can apply for. We support pre-doctoral students through individual fellowships for the diversity It's called the Diversity F31, so the Diversity Fellowship, and that's specifically designed to, again, support individuals who will enhance the diversity of the biomedical research workforce. We also have a considerable part of the portfolio is devoted to the National Research Service Award, or T32, and these are graduate programs in the basic biomedical sciences as well as the medical science training program. We have language now that we incorporate in aspects of it, our priorities for training programs, and that would include diversity, equity, and inclusion. So those are some of that's just kind of broad strokes of some of the pre-doctoral programs and undergraduate programs. And there are some major themes that we've put into our funding announcements to make sure that our training programs are just keeping up with modern times in terms of what we're looking for training programs. So we have an emphasis on the trainees specifically, and want to see skills development, and that the institutions are using evidence-informed approaches to provide students with these technical, operational, and professional skills, which you can see at the bottom of the slide here. We want to see that there are training objectives, and that those are specific and measurable and obtainable within the 5-year period of the training award. We want to see that there's rigor and transparency and the responsible and safe conduct of research that's threaded throughout the entire training experience. As I mentioned on the previous slide, we want to see a strong commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion at all levels. Also promoting a culture of safety, and that includes safe and inclusive research training environments. That there's mentor training and oversight throughout the trainees' time in the program. That the trainees have career preparedness so that they have the knowledge and skills to transition into a range of careers in the biomedical research workforce. We're looking for strong institutional support, and also that there's a robust evaluation plan, and that the programs will be responsive to the data, and then disseminate the successes and failures to the broader community. So now I'd like to move on to programs that are available for postdoctoral fellows, early career individuals, and faculty. So we have a program called the Institutional Research and Academic Career Development Award, or IRACTA. And this is a partnership between a research-intensive institution and a teaching-intensive partner. The IRACTA scholars have spent 75% of their time doing research and 25% of their time teaching at the teaching-intensive partner, which is typically an institution that has a historic mission serving individuals from underrepresented groups. So they gain the knowledge and skills that they need to transition into academic careers. And our outcomes analysis showed that 70% go on to academic careers, and it's a broad range of academic institutions where they end up. We also have a brand new program, and I hope you'll spread the word about this. This is the Maximizing Opportunities for Scientific and Academic Independent Careers, or the MOSAIC program. And it has two parts to it. One is kind of similar to the research education programs, where there's some additional structures and oversight. And these are awarded specifically to scientific societies. We have our first cohort of scientific societies that have been awards, and you can see those listed here. At the same time, the MOSAIC scholars come in and put in applications through the NIH system for something that's called a K99R00. What that is it supports them in their mentored phase still as postdocs, and then also gives them a research grant once they transition to their faculty position. So they come in and compete in a range of scientific areas. The successful applicants are made awards, and then they're distributed out into the different scientific societies, and they're clustered according to their scientific interest. One of the key things about this program is that it's a diversity enhancing program. And one of the things that the scholars need to do in their application is to talk about their past, present, and future plans for leadership in the area of diversity. So this is a case in which typically individuals have what's called the diversity tax, where they're doing extra efforts in the diversity space that go unrecognized and unacknowledged. But this is an opportunity for them to leverage those past activities and then have it be part of the competitive application process. So each year cohorts are added to the scientific societies. Some will begin to transition into their faculty positions. And all the while they're getting added career development activities that will occur through, and mentoring and networking opportunities through these scientific societies. We're pleased to say that it started out at NIGMS, but it's now a nearly a 100% trans NIH initiative. We're still working on a couple of ICs, but we're hoping soon that all of the institutes and centers will be participating in at least one aspect of the Mosaic program. Because of this broad reach, we now have the K99R00 that will have clinical trials allowed, as well as basic experimental studies with humans. And I mentioned it's a diversity enhancing program, and one of the really heartening aspects is to see the demographics, the self-reported demographics of the applicants. And you can see it's 75% women and 76% underrepresented minorities, and the applicant pool of the standard, the kind of what's called the parent K99R00, the diversity is extremely lacking with respect to both of these groups. We also have faculty opportunities for individuals who are working at institutions with a historic mission serving students from underrepresented backgrounds. And this used to be called the SCORE program, but it's now called the SURE program, Support for Research Excellence. And there's two types of awards, one for established faculty and then another for first-time awardees. So also as part of this talk, I was asked to give some advice, and I think I'm probably going to give you the same advice you've been told many times, but I'll just go through it again. And one obvious one is to start early, start much earlier than you think you need to. These are extremely complicated applications, and they need time to work through all the various bits and pieces. I can't emphasize enough reading the funding announcement to ensure that you're eligible, to ensure that you understand the goals and mission, and that you're really highly responsive to the funding announcement. That's something that the reviewers take very seriously as to how responsive you are to the funding announcement. Also, many people will have the same questions you have, and so check the frequently asked questions on the web pages. Recommend watching or reading any posted webinar, even if it's from the previous year, it will still be helpful. And then most importantly, you should contact the NIGMS program director, because they can have helpful hints and insights that they can help you with along the way. So I just took a screenshot of one of our web pages, and you can see all these things I'm mentioning, or it should be accessible very easily, usually at the bottom of the web page, so that you can access these resources. So with that, I'll end also recommending that you might want to, for those of you who do these things, follow us on Twitter, because we'll be posting any new announcements or deadlines, or sometimes just various tips for grantees. So with that, I will end and take any questions. Stop sharing.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Gammie.
Dr. Gammie, they want to know, where can we see which institutions have been awarded the UP5?
So right now it's just those three: the ASCB, ASBMB, and the AAMC. And currently that is covering the range of scholars so far, and that's partly because the AAMC has, it's an umbrella organization with a number of medical colleges. So we are going to potentially, we did a concept clearance to reissue the UE5 application or funding announcement, and specifically target areas where we have a need. One example would be, for example, neuroscience. So yeah, there's another one going to be coming up, and we're going to continue to be responsive to the pool of K99 scholars to make sure that we can meet their needs scientifically.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Gammie. David, do we have any other questions that weren't already answered in the chat?
No, not at this point.
Excellent. So Dr. Gammie, I just have one question. If one of our participants, because many of them are participating asynchronously, if they have questions, can they email you?
Sure. And also if it's a specific program, they can also go directly to their program officer. So if it's kind of big picture things, that's fine. But if they have a fine-grained question, they're probably better off going to the program officer.
Yes, and I'm sure that many of the universities tuning in today have graduate student advisors as well as faculty advisors working with the graduate and doctoral researchers that are tuning into this workshop series. We also have a number of faculty involved in this series. Is there any advice you'd like to give to faculty mentors?
Faculty mentors. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of really great resources out there now on mentoring. So we support, I didn't talk about it because it's an ongoing program, but there's not any new applications coming in, and that's the National Research Mentoring Network. And they have a webpage resource that they have a number of resources. They also have a lot of the principal investigators and players will offer mentor training to institutions, and they have curriculum available. They do something along the lines of train the trainer. So an individual from the institution can go and get training, and then so you can learn the most effective practices for mentoring, both what we consider traditional mentoring, but as well as culturally aware mentoring, just to make sure that people, when they mentor, are being responsive to people's cultural backgrounds and the kinds of issues that they may be specifically navigating.
That's great.
Dr. Gammie, you mentioned that the NIGMS doesn't use Haylines. Could you explain what Haylines are?
Yeah, so a Payline would be, let's say, at NIH, it's backwards, where a low score is good. And so if you have, if you just rank order the scores and you say, we have this much money, we're going to pay, however many we can, we just go straight down the line until we hit the point where we run out of money. We don't really do that. We don't just take a straight cutoff at any point. We have a sense, we know the ones that get scores that are in the kind of fundable range, and then we just take a more holistic approach to it. Some of the things we look at, for example, in the research project grant space, is how many other research grants does this person have, and do they really need an additional award? Would it be better served to a new investigator or somebody at an institution that we typically don't fund, or maybe it's in a topic area that we're excited about funding, even if the score wasn't perfect. And, so we really do take a much more holistic approach to the funding decisions that aren't really, based on what almost a robot could do, rank them, cut the line, and then move on. So.
And I believe that you're also taking into consideration geography, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Very many things in Hawaii, for example.
Yeah.
That's great. I know that sometimes people don't always understand the difference between an R1 or an R2 institution, but it's more well known if they're an HSI type of institution. But tuning into today's conversation are faculty and students from a variety of places, such as labs and hospitals. What if they don't have an affiliation with a university? Can they still apply?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are challenges to it. Certainly, you need to first check the funding announcement, and it will tell you eligible institutions. And usually it's quite open to a broad range of institution types. The challenge there is just having the capacity to submit an NIH grant, which is they have all these complicated pieces involved, and budgets need to look a certain way. And so it takes some work. If you don't have that infrastructure, you really need to develop that infrastructure. And actually, we do have, as part of our mission, is to build capacity in this area as well for sponsored programs, because it's there's a double hit. If you're at an institution that doesn't have the capacity, you typically don't have time because you're busy with other things, and then you have to learn this whole piece about submitting an application.
So when you take a holistic approach to figuring out whether or not they'll be funded, do you consider where they're coming from if they're not, if the institution they have isn't as robust with the infrastructure?
Right. So I'll just give you an example of that. We had this is now a program that had a finite limit. It's part of a common fund initiative, and those tend to have just a time limited. We had a competition for development of sponsored programs administration. And we really oriented the reviewers to try to not, a lot of times people will give the score partly based on grantsmanship, and how well it's put together and written. And it's nice for reviewers when things are nicely written, but we had to say that they had to kind of go beyond that, because that's exactly the type of institution we're trying to reach, or those that don't yet have that full capacity up and running. And so, that's just one example where we both oriented the reviewer, and then we could make some decisions later about institution types and who would benefit the most from that funding and have a big impact.
This is great information. Thank you so much. David has another question.
I have one final question, Dr. Gammie. Does NIGMS have funds in the program that would support social science research to help support diversifying the biomedical pipeline? Example, research with students and faculty to help understand their needs and their pathways.
Yes, so that's the research portfolio that we have that's about research on interventions to increase the persistence in the biomedical research workforce. So that typically, it's helpful if one of the investigators or part of the team has a strong social science background. It just makes for a more robust team. And sometimes it's difficult. People have a great deal of experience in training, but they don't have experience in that type of social science research and all that entails, particularly when you have human subjects and and you need robust comparator groups or randomized controls or other such things, and then having enough statistical power. So recruiting enough participants in the study to make sure you can make robust conclusions. So we definitely encourage social scientists in that space.
And then just to follow up on that, how does that support social science research under the R15 mechanism?
So yeah, R15, you could come in through R15 for an interventions grant. That is possible. It would just have to, again, it would be really helpful if the individual contacted us so we can keep an eye out for that application. One of the things that happens is the intervention, we might steer them towards applying to the R01 because that we review that within our own NIGMS review group. And so we can strongly orient the reviewers, and we can also make sure that they have sufficient expertise. If they go into the R15 pool, it might be reviewed in a heavy basic science portfolio, where the review panel is discussing sort of basic science, and the review panel might not have the expertise to understand social science studies and design. And so that's something that we try to shepherd it through by having a specific funding announcement for it, because then we can control the locus of review. So whoever that person is, even though they're at an institution that is R15 eligible, they might want to come in for the R01.
Thank you very much. Those are all the questions that I currently have in chat.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gammie. This was wonderful.
Okay, great. Yeah, and please feel free to reach out to me if you have any further questions about our programs or the application process.
We absolutely will. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
All right, take care.